The Luminous Mind, episode 009.
I feel like once they get around 12, sometimes they need some outside mentors and people to inspire them and love them and to reinforce what you're teaching them already. And so it's really cool to have a community of like-minded people.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's fire starter is Cammie Harris. Cammie loves homeschooling and the challenges and joys that being a mother of four brings to her. She's happily married to Dustin Harris. She's passionate about working with youth and children. She chose to major in elementary education with an emphasis in music and graduated with a bachelor's degree from Utah State University. She loves to study and learn and grow as a mentor every day. She has taken several training mentoring classes from some of the top mentors in Lemmy as well as in Leap Writing, been trained in Kimber Academy with a personal mentor from Angela Baker. She loves the homeschooling community and draws strength and wisdom from those around her. She began teaching other homeschooled youth in 2007 when she created a mom school called Daughters of Royalty. After doing this for 3 years, she joined forces with other like-minded homeschooling families to create iFamily, where she served on the Bylaws Writing Committee. She has enjoyed mentoring for the last 4 years. Welcome, Cammie.
Okay, so do you want to briefly tell us about yourself?
Sure. I have 4 kids, ages 7 to 16. My oldest is a daughter, and the rest are all boys. I really love teaching. Ever since I was a little girl, my 5th grade teacher, she just totally inspired me. I loved her as a teacher, and ever since that point, I wanted to become a teacher. So the fact that I homeschool and then also get to teach in our homeschool community is a huge bonus. I also love music, especially singing. I don't get to do that as often as I would like, so but I do enjoy singing a lot. I also really like being creative and organizing, and once again, I don't have a ton of time for that, so when I get to do it, it's that much more appreciated. And I also seem to spend a lot of time studying health and figuring out ways to eat healthier and cleaner and things like that.
That's great. So what was your personal educational experience? Maybe tell us like how you were schooled, and then also like I know you have a teaching degree and kind of what your prior learning has resulted.
Sure. I was a product of public school, as probably are most adults in our nation. And to be honest, I actually really liked school while I was in school. Didn't have a lot of complaints or anything like that. I did well in school. I actually graduated as a valedictorian of my high school class, and I graduated with high honors from college. But the reason I even admit that is because when I was involved in the actual public school process, I thought I was successful and I played the game well. But as I became an adult and became a mother and started having children of my own, I realized how unprepared I was. I was really focused on what other people thought of me and pleasing the teachers and I don't know what my peers thought of me and just being the best at whatever I was doing, to the point where I was almost afraid to even try anything that I might fail at. And I look back and I really think that I had a false sense of self-worth, because it was totally based on what others thought of me. And I really felt like that was my purpose. When I first became a mom and started staying home with my first baby, that was my greatest desire, was to stay home and take care of her. But it was also a huge life adjustment for me, because I had to stop relying on what other people thought of me and the false, I don't know how to say it exactly, but But just the small community that I had, I didn't have an intrinsic sense of self-worth, I guess. I just really cared a lot what other people thought of me, and whether I was the best at whatever I did. And obviously when you become a mother, nobody cares how many poopy diapers you change or how well you scrub the dishes, or I don't know. It was just a huge adjustment to me, I guess, being praised for what I was doing. And so it was the first time I really had to dig deep inside me and figure out who I truly was. And I really feel like my educational experience was so far from the reality of life that it didn't prepare me well for my life's mission. And that's something that I hope will be different for my own children. Also, I was, as you already mentioned, my degree was in elementary education. And there were some things, I was pretty young and dumb, and, there were some things that were taught that didn't feel right to me, but I didn't necessarily know why they didn't feel right to me. There were some positive things too, but I really feel like the thing that I learned the most in my degree was how to manage large groups of children, not necessarily the best way to teach. And I hear people say a lot of times to me, well, you can homeschool because you have a degree in elementary education. And I am here to say that it really is not helpful to me, except for the fact that I have been around other teachers and know that they're just people too, doing the best that they can on any given day. And it's helped me realize that it doesn't take an expert trained with a degree to teach your own children. And if you truly care about your children and you're committed about their success, and what mother isn't, you're going to figure out whatever it takes to help them to be successful. And there's so many tools and things available nowadays that if you're willing to put in effort and time, you can be successful. And I've also learned that my elementary education degree was really it wasn't a natural way to learn. It was a very forced, like, this is the way kids learn. And while there were some elements that were probably good that I learned, education doesn't have to look like that or be that way.
So is that why you chose to homeschool? Because you had a degree, or what was your reasoning for wanting to homeschool?
Honestly, I chose to homeschool because after sending my oldest daughter to school for kindergarten and first grade, I could see her spirit just kind of wilting inside her. I can't really point to any grievance I specifically had with public school. I could just see the light going out of her and her personality changing, and I just didn't like it. And I felt like I needed to do something different, so I started looking for other options, and that's when I found you, and you were at that point involved in starting Taylor's Crossing Charter School. And so I was really excited about that, but then it didn't end up beginning the year that we were hoping. And I just honestly had a strong spiritual impression that I should homeschool that year. And I thought, you know what, it's only a year. I can probably handle it for a year. But honestly, I was pretty overwhelmed and scared about it. So, I get that. But once I began, I realized that that's what I needed to do. And especially at first it was difficult, but I also found a lot of purpose and joy in it, and just an overall confirmation that that's what I needed to be doing.
I think it's fun when we talk about, how we both came to homeschooling. It was almost the same experience, and I think that's kind of a neat thing. So How do you think tell us first of all about your educational philosophy and maybe what curriculum you use, and then tell us how your paradigm or your educational philosophies maybe changed over time and with experience.
Okay.
I guess we kind of already talked about how it's changed.
No, that's totally fine. I'll start where I was at as far as my educational philosophy. I obviously, when I first started, I didn't know any different than the way I had been taught, and also the way I had been trained to teach in my college education. So I basically started doing at home the way I had been taught and the way I had been taught to teach. And it might work okay for a classroom environment at public school, but for children, your own children, it's not the best. It's hard to go to take.
Well, and it's hard to go from mom to teacher, and you've got to find that balance.
Exactly.
Do you think?
Exactly. And it also becomes homeschooling because you're doing it at home. It has to become a lifestyle and something that you work your regular life around, that it becomes part of your life. It's not like you have this classroom that you go to and you stay at for 8 hours a day. You have to intertwine your regular life with education and learning. And, although I have specific school time set aside where we do have a specific place that we go to do school, it's more than just doing school. You have to live your life too. But I guess I had a really narrow view of what education should look like just based on my own experience. I've come to realize that really it's kind of an artificial way to learn. I feel like it's limiting to some degree. There's kind of a cookie cutter approach that this is what every child should learn every year, and this is what you'll know by the time you get done with your schooling. And, you know, in the beginning, that was my approach. That's what I thought. Well, what should my child know this year? And where should they be so that they can be on track with their neighborhood peers who are in public school and that kind of thing. But I've been homeschooling for a lot of years now. My daughter, I guess, would be a junior. I've been homeschooling since she was in second grade. And over the course of those years, I have come, I guess, through study and through just my own personal experience to have a different philosophy. And I'm much more apt to trust my own judgment and rely on Heavenly Father rather than what anybody might tell me to say, whether it's, you know, the government standards that might be set forth or whether it's some great homeschool book that says this is how you should homeschool and this is the best way to do it or whatever. I still read those things and get great ideas from it, but rather than looking at it as this is a list of what I should be doing, I tend more now to think for myself and apply what I think will work for my family personally.
And for each individual child, right? I mean,
right, and for
the
every
government
individual child.
I mean, you probably had the same experience I have where some children read sooner and they're more anxious to learn when others that, you know, you have a more difficult time.
Right,
I mean,
exactly. And it's beautiful because you can treat each child as an individual. You can treat them as I feel like God sees them, and you don't have to do the same thing for every child. I feel like with every child I learn new skills and abilities and ways to help them and to feel like I guide them more. But as they get older and they learn to think for themselves and have their own relationship with Heavenly Father and feel His guide, I feel like I guide them more. But as they get older and they learn to think for themselves and have their own relationship with Heavenly Father and feel His guide, I feel like I guide them more. But as they get older and they learn to think for themselves and have their own relationship with Heavenly Father and feel His guidance in their lives, I feel like, you know, they have the ability to decide what it is that they want to study and what it is they need to learn. And, you know, there's a whole slew of skills and abilities that I hope my children have by the time they leave my home. But they don't match up with what the government says or what
necessarily, even educational books, yeah.
Right, any education book or whatever. It's, you know, I feel very strongly that it's my God-given role as a parent to decide with my children what is their individual purpose and mission in life and to help them develop the skills and abilities that they need to completely fulfill that mission and to have impact in the world. And obviously that's going to involve math and writing and reading and all those things because you can't be successful in the world without that. But it may not involve calculus or it may not involve, you know, other things that may or may not be important to them. So,
well, and you can customize that for their interest, you know, and make a more specialized education versus, is that what you're?
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think that there is a place for a breadth of knowledge, but there's also a great place for depth of knowledge. And what I mean by that is I think it is important to have certain skills. I think that there are certain skills that every person needs to be able to be literate and successful in life and able to communicate with the world and function properly. But there's also, I think, a special mission that each one of my children have. And, you know, they each have certain passions that they love and are interested in. And I want them to be able to pursue that and to be individuals and to be able to experience their genius and not have to do something that doesn't matter as far as their life goes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. So what is some of the best advice that you've ever received?
I remember one time being at a book discussion, and I don't remember for sure what book we were even discussing, but one of the moms there, I remember I was probably in my second year of homeschooling and struggling with one of my children, and I'm a very task-oriented person. I like to get things done, and sometimes that is at the expense of relationships. And I was frustrated because I couldn't get this particular child to do what I wanted him to do. And he I was just frustrated all the time. I said something along those lines in the book discussion, and I remember her saying something about that relationships are a lot more important than what you get done in a day. And it just hit me really, really strongly that that is really what's most important. And from experience now, I still tend to want to have my checklist of this is what we're going to get done today, and nothing's going to veer us off the path or detract us from our goal. But I've come to realize that the relationships that you build within your home are far more important than what is being learned. It's the character that you're building as a family and the way you treat each other and the way you love each other. And I've learned that that's more important than the loads of information that you're pouring into their brains or whatever. And they're not going to learn it if they don't feel loved and they don't feel
exactly
respected and appreciated and validated. And so
and I
was
think
really
when you
important advice to me.
When you put that relationship first, you take away the power struggle, and then maybe things flow better.
Yeah,
eventually.
It's amazing to me if I can put my own ego aside and really listen and love my children. You know, a lot of times, I know I keep talking a lot about Heavenly Father and God, but to me, that's a huge part of my homeschooling journey is being able to have that, I guess, that guidance from Heavenly Father. And I feel like when our relationships aren't right, then that guidance can't happen. But if I can set my own ego aside and listen to my child and listen to Heavenly Father, I feel like a door opens and I'm able to have a lot more impact and influence than I would rather than just getting my checklist done, which seems really obvious, but it's just not part of my nature. So,
well, I think
anyway.
That's great. No, that is wonderful. So what do you think, the big question that we all get as homeschoolers is what do we do for socialization, and what do you think it means to be socialized?
Okay. That was actually one of the biggest worries I had when I first started homeschooling. I was paranoid that if I started homeschooling and continued it for any length of time, that my children would end up, being
weird
awkward socially and not knowing how to talk to anybody or, and I will be honest, that's been in the back of my mind a little bit, always wondering, will they fit in? Like, will they know how to? But as I've homeschooled, I don't worry about that anymore. Like my first couple years, I had my kids involved in every social activity outside of our home that you can possibly imagine because I was so paranoid about it. But I started burning out really fast and realized there wasn't really enough of me to go around and realized that I needed to change some things. And I realized that, when you think about it logically, being surrounded by a bunch of peers that are all the same age, most of the day, not all day, the majority of the day, isn't necessarily the most healthy way to be socialized. I've also noticed, sorry, my thoughts are kind of rambling, so hopefully this will come together in the end. But I've noticed that once my kids near the age of, 12, 11 or 12, and it depends on the child's personality, that they do need some outside connection on a regular basis. I think that peer interaction and interaction with other teachers and mentors is really, really important. But, we have lots of support as homeschoolers. One of the things that we've created within our own community, iFamily, is, a group of about 65 families who meet together on a regular basis. And I feel like my children have a great opportunity to interact with kids that I feel like have really a strong sense of who they are, and the peer pressure that they experience is positive, and it pushes them to be better and have high standards. And I also feel like they experience real life by being at home and seeing what I do all day. And, a lot of times my kids will go to work with their dad, and then they get to see what dad does. And, they have plenty of friends and plenty of opportunities to socialize. And I feel like this type of socialization really acclimates them to real life and prepares them in a lot better way than I was prepared in public school, like I mentioned before. I was all about trying to please my peers, and I feel like my children think deeply. They can interact with lots of different ages, and they're not intimidated. They really don't seem to care a lot about what people think of them. They just have a strong sense of who they are. And I know that there's a lot of kids in public school who are that way too. I guess what I'm saying is it's not something I worry about because I see them interact with people, and I'm probably weird too, so maybe they are weird and I just don't know, but I feel like they're fine. So.
Yeah, you do start to realize it is a myth. That's why, I put the question in there because I'm sure people have questions about it, but it really is a myth. I mean, as far as not being socialized.
Yeah, it is, and it is something that I totally worried about from the beginning, but since haven't at all. And I look at my kids and I don't know if they're just stronger, better people than me, but I was really afraid to stand up and volunteer to do something or stand up and whatever. And my kids are not shy at all. They'll stand up and do whatever anytime.
Yeah.
And so the myth of them being shy or not knowing how to talk or communicate, I think it's just a myth. So.
Yeah, exactly. So we talked about trying to get over our own educational background and also your teaching background, but what are some other big obstacles that you face? And then maybe what are some things that you learned from those obstacles?
Okay, probably one of the biggest obstacles that I faced homeschooling is just trying to figure out how to fit everything into a day. But I think that that's probably something that everybody struggles with. I don't know anybody that doesn't feel extremely busy. I think we just fill our time with whatever we feel is worthwhile, and so all of us are busy. But I feel like the homeschooling life, it really does. I mean, there's a lot to do, so there's a lot to get around to, but I also feel like it's really rewarding, and it stretches me in a good way, and it gives me purpose. And
so even though it's difficult, I mean, even though there are obstacles, because there are, you feel like you're stronger because of that. Is that what I'm...
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. And I've had people say, and I'm sure you have too, one of the most common things that they say to me is, well, I'm not patient enough to homeschool. And I just laugh because I'm not either. But when you choose this, you learn, you figure out ways to be stronger and to be what you need to do, to be what you need to be able to do what you need to do. And I think that's true for anything.
To get to know, you have to get to know your children better to be able to, know how to interact with them. Is that where you're kind of heading with that?
And I think, that kind of leads into one of my other biggest struggles is interacting with my children who aren't wired like I am, who don't think like I do, who don't learn maybe the way that I do. And it's a challenge, but it's also a blessing because I learned to become more empathetic and to see from their perspective and to step back and to see how God sees my children. I've learned that you can't just have a plan. I've kind of already alluded to this, but you can't just have a plan and force it on your children, especially teenagers.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't. They have to have some kind of say, and they need to feel validated and respected and loved. And when you're with your children as much as you are when you homeschool, you have to learn to make relationship work effectively because you can't just send them away. You don't deal with them on a limited basis. You're with them a lot. And so you have to... I feel like you have to really dig deep, and it makes you stretch and grow in a way that wouldn't necessarily be part of life if you were sending them to school every day. But I think that it's a good thing because I feel like our relationships are stronger and deeper, a lot deeper than what I remember growing up. I had a great relationship with my parents, but I didn't interact with them as much as I interact with my kids. And so I feel like it's a blessing.
Well, and I notice my kids come to me about things that I would never have approached my own parents about because there is that relationship. Do you feel that way too? That maybe...
I feel like I had a really close relationship with my parents, so I don't know if that's necessarily true in my case, other than the fact that just because I'm the person there, they tend to talk more. If there's something on their mind, they'll talk to me because I'm the one standing there. So I didn't necessarily feel uncomfortable talking to my parents, but I definitely felt like I was separate from them. In high school, I was hardly ever home. And, I just lived my own life and wasn't really aware of their struggles or what they were going through. Or, I just feel like we support and help each other a lot. And I feel like it, in a big way, I hope anyway, that it prepares them for the real world a little bit better because they're experiencing that instead of artificial.
Well, and learning those life skills, you really can't learn that in a home ec class. It really is helpful to learn it on the.
Yeah, I agree. I think that home ec classes obviously have great things about them too, but it's more of an artificial setup rather than just learning through the process. And I've learned far more about how to teach and things like that by homeschooling my children than I ever did, getting a degree in elementary education. And were there things that were valuable as part of that education? I think so. But overall, I think that I have learned a lot more because I have a vision and a purpose that I really care about. I care about my kids and I want them to be happy and successful. And so I'll do whatever it takes to help them in that goal.
Yep.
This is a great time to take a break. When we come back, we'll hear more about Cammie's successes.
If you would like to see your business grow, then contact us at The Luminous Mind for advertising space on theluminousmind.net or on the podcast, The Luminous Mind Podcast.
Welcome back with Cammie.
Okay, so we've talked about like ways that you've grown, but what are some successes that you've seen? And then successes you've seen, maybe personal habits that help you make you successful, and then how you've benefited. We've kind of talked about that, I guess, as a family, but is there any other things you want?
I think as my children have grown older, I've come to see more fully who they're becoming than when they were little. You don't always see the rewards of all the effort you put into to helping them learn and develop and things, but it's really cool to me to watch my older kids and see the initiative they have. And I feel like, I know I've heard you mention that homeschooling naturally just kind of promotes leadership because you're doing something different, and so they already have to
defend themselves.
Defend themselves and stand up for themselves, why they're doing what they're doing. But it's been really cool to me to see my older children take initiative and stand up for what they believe in, and they don't really seem to care what people think of them. They care, I don't know, they're very respectful, I think, of people's opinions and value systems and things like that. I know when I was growing up, I had a really black and white perspective of life, and I don't feel like my children have that. They really tend to be able to see from other people's perspectives and think deeply.
So maybe the idea, I've heard people say before, well, if you homeschool your kids, you're taking them out of situations of interacting with people with different beliefs. But do you feel like, I guess what I feel like you're saying is that maybe because they're homeschooled, they have a broader perspective. They are more willing to look at people's, different beliefs and stuff and respect them versus when they're at school, feeling like you said, really black and white.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I can see why people might think that, but I see in my children the exact opposite. And I don't know if it's because when you're at school, everybody's kind of taught similar things and you're kind of in a group think type setting. I don't know, or if it's because we are constantly reading lots of different views and discussing different views and why people feel the way they do. But that's one of the emphasis that I have in my homeschool is I really want my children to leave home knowing how to think for themselves and having their own relationship with God. And so,
critical thinking, maybe, where they don't just learn your opinion, but maybe think about it on their own.
Exactly, especially as they get older and are able to think more abstractly. I think that totally critical. And, it's been cool to me to just see the little things that they have chosen to do on their own initiative. They've both done kind of little part-time businesses and they interact with other adults. And like my daughter went to Ecuador this last summer, and that was completely of her own initiative. I didn't suggest it or try to talk her into it. That was just something she felt driven to do, and that was really cool to me because, she wanted to share all that she's been given to those less fortunate, and she felt a call and she fulfilled it, and I supported her in that decision. But, I just see, and, with my 14-year-old son, from what I've seen in public school and my own experience, I don't think he would have thrived very well. He's very energetic, doesn't really like to, he's not a typical, he doesn't
sit
like
in
to
your
sit
chair
still in a desk. But at the same time, he is brilliant in a lot of ways. And I think we all have our genius. So I'm not saying that he's an exception, but it's been really cool to watch him be able to pursue what's really interesting to him and have mentors that are specific for, we've been able to find college students that have been able to help him with his interests, and he's been able to pursue those and take initiative there. And I don't think he would have had that opportunity otherwise. And so that's really cool.
And my kids still talk about his last science project. How cool that was. A little bit of a pyromaniac.
Yeah, he's definitely that.
But it's fun.
But anyway, so I don't remember all that you just asked me, but I know, like, my daughter started a college class this last semester, and she did great in it. And, you always kind of wonder, are they really prepared to go to college? Are they, do they have what they need? But, she's done fine, and it, really hasn't been too difficult for her. So
16, right?
Yeah, she's 16, almost 17. So this
and
is
she did
her
great
junior.
In a college level class, though.
Yeah, she did.
Great.
So what else did you ask? Something about?
Well, just
habits,
benefits. Personal habits. Maybe
okay.
Personal habit that makes you successful.
Okay. One thing that I would say that has been really helpful to me, and this is just something probably that I don't know that every homeschooler would feel this way because there's different personalities, but I'm a pretty, like I've already mentioned, I like to get things done and see results. I'm pretty structured, and I know a lot of homeschoolers aren't that way, and it still works just great. But for us, having a schedule that we stick to every day has been really helpful because my kids just get up and they know what they need to do, and we don't have to go through the rigmarole of figuring out every second of every day what we're going to be doing. It's just already planned out for the most part. Not that it doesn't have room for adjustments and, following their own interests and things like that. But I tend to, I guess,
well, you're saying plan like certain things they have to do, like maybe piano practice or, their own personal study time and their own doing any personal, hygiene types. You're meaning like that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we just have, in general, they get up and do their morning jobs and, do their piano practicing, and we have our family devotional, and we have school time for 4 hours, and then we have lunch and do our afternoon jobs, and then they have some personal study time and then play time with their friends if they want. And I guess, there's still a lot of flexibility within the structure, but I just have found that I tend to just allow certain hours for certain things, and not just for school. Like Friday afternoon, that's the time I spend organizing school and preparing for the outside classes that I'm teaching, other homeschool youth through iFamily. And I just try to schedule time to work on the things that are most important to me. So even if I'm not getting everything done, which you never do, you're always spending time on a consistent basis focusing on the things that are most important. And I just think that's important so that you're always getting your priorities taken care of. And, I think it also creates some kind of meaningful rituals and things like that for your kids, too. Like part of Saturday, we always spend doing something fun or doing a service project or something like that. And that's just what our family expects. And I think that, it adds.
Well, and it helps make them a little better, well-rounded in a way.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. What is maybe one thing that you or your family is doing that you're most excited about, and then kind of expound upon like what some of your long-term goals maybe for yourself or your family would be?
Okay. Gosh, some of the most exciting things we're doing. Well, the last couple of years we have been doing, it's called American Heritage Family School, and I have really enjoyed doing that. That's been really fun. It's from a Latter-day Saint perspective, because I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so it's perfect for my family. One of the things I really like about it is it teaches a principle of truth from the scriptures, and then it applies it to an academic principle. And I really like how it's outlined, and there's lots of different cool options and learning opportunities and different things you can do. So it gives you a ton of structure, but there's tons of things to choose from within the structure. So I really have liked that a lot. Another thing that I am super passionate about and love, and I've mentioned already, but I love our homeschool community. I can't imagine homeschooling teenagers without a homeschool community. I'm super passionate about iFamily and I love teaching the youth there. And I feel like right now it's one of my personal missions to just grow and strengthen iFamily. And it's so awesome to see how many people have joined and how many amazing adults are part of the organization and have such vision and are willing to put so much effort into our youth and growing such amazing community. You're in charge of the student council this year, and that's been really cool to see our kids have an opportunity to have a leadership opportunity in that way. And I am just super grateful for my homeschool community and feel like it has been such a huge boost and a huge help to me personally, especially for teenagers. Like I said before, I feel like once they get around 12, sometimes they need some outside mentors and people to inspire them and love them and to reinforce what you're teaching them already. And so it's really cool to have a community of like-minded people, even though a lot of us have really differing opinions. In a lot of ways, we're like-minded as well. And
we
really cool
have one mission.
Right. So it's really cool to have that to rely on and to know that there's other good people loving and supporting your youth and giving them other opportunities that they wouldn't be able to have otherwise. And I think it's cool because the peers are all working toward hard things, and so they're pushing each other that way. The peer support is really positive, and also they have the opportunity to do things in big groups that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do, like orchestra, and they, do plays. And it's amazing the community and the friendships that they build. And anyway, that's probably not what you were asking, but that's
no, I do find
I'm really excited about. So
just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying is that I do think it's interesting how I can be telling my children one thing, and then, but if they hear it from one of their mentors at our homeschooling co-op, all of a sudden it's like something that sticks, even though I may have said it to them 1,000 times. But I think the mentorship, like you said, that really makes a big difference in what they retain. So I totally agree.
Yes.
So what is some advice or encouragement you would give somebody who's just starting out?
It's probably too difficult to put into words. Not really. I think probably the easiest thing, I remember when I first started, I was so stressed out that this is the way you have to do it to be successful, and that's not true. I had such a limited view of this is what education is supposed to look like, and this is how it needs to happen all day, every day, and it never did. And so I was always disappointed with myself and my children. Not always, but I was frustrated a lot more than I needed to be, and I don't feel that way now. There's different frustrations that always come up, with raising teenagers. That's a different thing that you get to work through and and learn from. But I think it's important to not take things too seriously and just really spend time enjoying your children and building relationships. And doing the best that you can academically and spending time at it every day because it's important, it's a priority. But I've noticed that if you do things consistently, rather than worrying about how perfect they are, but just doing them consistently on a regular basis, it's amazing how much comes from that, and how much academics and learning and everything is just, it comes naturally if it's important to your family.
Great. So do you have a favorite book or a resource?
You know what, I honestly don't know that I do. There has been so many great resources that I've used, but even the bad resources have taught me something. I feel like I think the best advice is to just start reading and to start searching and to start trying to figure things out, because even if you, like I was saying, even if you completely disagree with what you just read, you're going to learn from that. Rather than trying to find the perfect book or finding the perfect answers, it's just starting somewhere and just doing it, and the rest falls in place as you have that vision in your mind of your children's best interests at heart. And I really feel like everything kind of falls into place as you have that vision and focus.
So what are some changes that you'd like to see in the future?
Probably what I've kind of already touched on. I think that there, at least in our country, there's a really limited view of what education is supposed to look like. I know that one of the questions I get a lot from people when they find out I homeschool is they say, well, how do you know that your children are learning everything that they're supposed to learn? I think that that's an interesting question because I think it shows how limited our view is of education, because last time I checked, I think education can look really different and still be totally successful. And I think that we kind of have the mindset that we have to have experts tell us what the education of our children should look like. And I really feel like I'm the expert for my children, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to become the expert and to know them on an individual basis to help them be successful with their personal missions. And so I guess I just would hope that that perception could change, that we could begin as I think that education doesn't have to look a certain way, or that if it's not done a certain way, it's not truly education. I know some of the greatest leaders that have ever been just taught a class on the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln is a great example of somebody who is self-educated and truly successful.
Yeah. So is there any parting words that you have, or maybe a favorite quote?
Well, I had the opportunity, I don't know, maybe like a year ago, to write up an essay or an article for iFamily on what I thought a scholar education was about. And as I pondered and thought what it is that I think education is about, and what the true purpose of education is, and what I want for my family and for myself, and I really like Benjamin Franklin's statement. He said, "Learning to serve God, family, and community is the aim and end of all true learning." And I have that on my wall, and I just love it because I feel like that is the true purpose of an education. First of all, you have to have an education or you don't have anything to offer. But the true purpose of that education is to serve people. And whether that's your family or your community or whatever, that's what I think is the true purpose of education, is to use yourself to serve other people. You know, the Savior said that let the greatest among you be the servant. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but that's what I think. I think that I want my kids to have a superb education, and I hope that they go on to get advanced education, and I assume most of them will get, degrees in college and things. But what I really want for them is to fulfill their personal missions and to use their lives to serve God and their families and their communities, humanity, and really leave an imprint and impact those around them for good. Be leaders and take initiative and stand up for what they believe in. I think that's what our world needs.
Yeah. Well, that is great. That was very inspiring. Thank you. Thanks for interviewing with us today. I've really enjoyed talking to you, like always. I always do. So,
you're so welcome. Thank you for the opportunity to blabber about my favorite subject.
Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. We need more fire starters like Cami. To join us, go to our website, theluminousmind.net, and click on the Fire tab. You'll be able to schedule an appointment today. Also, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Google+, subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as iTunes and Stitcher. Help us change the paradigm of education and light minds on fire.